Hey guys, welcome back to the Mina Does Art Stuff YouTube channel. My name is Mina and on this channel we do art stuff. So this is just the start of this particular video. It's going to take me a while to film it because I want to use the supplies a little bit before I give my final thoughts. But just wanted to say first off, I was contacted recently by Meeden to see if I wanted to try out some of their products. And I said absolutely, would love to. So they've sent me a few bits to test out. First thing they sent me is their heavy duty studio porcelain artist paint palette. This one has 32 wells and one large mixing area. It's set up in like a circular thing. You can sort of see some of it here. There's a few versions of this palette around, but the one by Meeden is the most affordable version that I've seen online. So I'm just gonna open it up. It comes really well packaged in this box. It looks like it's in great condition. There's no chips or any issues with any parts of it. Nope. Looks good. And yeah, I'll give it a good clean before I use it for the first time, just to get rid of any dust or any sort of residue of anything that might be on it. But yeah, so I think it's gonna go this way up. And that feels like it's the top. So yeah, you have the three main points for your primaries and then all the other colours to fit around, so you can lay out your palette as a colour wheel, which I think is really fun. It's a really cool idea, really fun, and I look forward to testing this out at some point. I really love the concept of this palette. I'm not sure when I will get round to filling it at the moment. I've got quite a busy few weeks coming up. So hopefully I will get to include this in this overall like review that I'm doing, but if I don't get to this now, I'm going to do a separate standalone video for this in the future. But I'm going to move this to one side for right now. They did send me a couple of other bits, and that's going to be the main focus of my review for this video. This will probably be in a separate video. The other stuff they sent in this other big box. So first up, I have one of their Meeden airtight watercolor palettes, and they also sent me one of their watercolor kits that they have. They have a couple of different variations of it. One comes with like a little flower palette. The one that I got came with something else, so I'll show you that. Pull everything out. So it comes with a pad of 100% cotton watercolor paper in 10 by 7 inches, so 10.2 by 7 inches, 24 tubes of watercolor paint, a set of 10 watercolor paint brushes, and instead of a palette, the set that I got came with a porcelain paint wash cup. Bloody hell. It's got two parts in it, and we'll open this up and take a look in a second. That was in the box as well. I'll just make sure there's nothing else hiding in here. I don't remember this being on the listing, but they've also sent me a page separator thing for the watercolor paper, because it comes on a block. So this is the watercolor kit. So it's these 4 pieces: paint, brushes, paper, and the paint wash cup. So the palette that they sent me is one of these airtight watercolor palettes, but they have it in yellow, and I've never seen one in yellow before. I've seen them in pink, in blue, I've seen them in silver, but never in yellow, and I thought that would be a really fun. Look how fun and happy and bright this color is. And this has 33 wells, so 33 deep slanted wells. It has the removable tray at the top, so you actually have quite a lot of mixing space, or you could just use the one mixing space and then it's easy to take it out and clean it. This tray also comes out, I believe, yep. So you can actually remove this if you wanted to and use it standalone. And if you had pans or full pans or whatever you wanted to put in here, you could do that to use that space. I've used several of these palettes before. They're great. I love them. A few different brands do them, but I do really enjoy them. They're great. They're really useful. And like I said, this one comes with 33 wells and they're really good sizes as well. Nice sort of slant to them, so you're not going to damage your brushes. And yeah, definitely like the look of this one. And it seals up nicely. The clasp clicks in place. It feels sturdy. And it's a nice sort of sturdy plastic. It's not like super flimsy, which is great. And then let's check out this paint wash cup. Again, because it's porcelain, they've done a really good job with the packaging. And here we go. So it's a lovely 2-well water cup. You've got the Meeden branding on the front here. Yeah. And yeah, it's really nice weight. It's a good size. They're nice and deep. You can get plenty of water in there, and you can use it for like 1 well for clean water, 1 well for dirty water. I will be honest, I tend to forget and just end up using 1 well and then use the other well once that first one's dirty. And then let's take a look at these brushes. Ooh, pretty. So I really like the colours on these. Oh, as soon as I open the box, there's definitely a smell from the packaging. And yeah, so it'd be interesting to test out these brushes. Some of the sizing seem to be fairly similar. Let me just see, there's nothing. Okay, on here it tells you what you have. So you get a detail brush, 0.08 inch. Not sure, I think that must be this one. You get a detail 1/10 of an inch, a round 1/8 of an inch, round 1/7 of an inch, script 1/5 of an inch, script 1/4 of an inch, flat 2/5 of an inch, flat 3/5 of an inch, a glaze 7/10, and a fan 11/5 of it. I don't understand that one. 11/5. I'm not sure. So that's the fan brush. I think this is what they're calling the glaze brush. And then you've got the 2 flats. And then you've got one, what they say is you've got 2 rounds, 2 scripts, and 2 detail brushes. But they all just look like round brushes to me in the box. None of them really look like a script or detail brush. They all look like round brushes. And they're all, I mean, a lot of them are quite close in size. So I feel like you could easily have 3 different brushes all together, or like a larger round brush. This round brush seems a little bit, it looks nice, but it feels like it would be nicer it would have been nice to have had another larger size round brush, or maybe a different shape brush in this set instead of 6 fairly similar sized round brushes, like a filbert maybe, or a dagger brush, something a little bit different. I like the range of flat brushes. The fan brush I could live with or without. Like, I don't need a fan brush, I don't really use one, but and it's nice to have a selection of round brushes. But like I said, a lot of, like, these two are very similar size. These two are similar. This one's good, this one's good, but it would have been nice to have like one more that was like even bigger than that, like a size 12, like a large round brush, or a brush with longer bristles, like a rigger brush. So on first look, that's my first impression just by looking at them in terms of what comes in the set. But if you're a complete beginner and you don't have any brushes, I haven't tested them out, so I don't know what they're like. This one's got a little something stuck on it. The only other thing I would note is that there's no labeling on these brushes to tell you what they are. They just have the Meeden branding on them. There's nothing on here to say what size or shape each brush is. So if you're completely new and you don't know brush terminology, this isn't going to particularly help you to learn that. But it's a nice 10-piece set from the looks of it. It's synthetic hair. Then we have the paints. Alright, so on the back here you have the list of the colours with the pigment information, their light fastness information and transparency information. So it's good that they've included all of that. And yeah, so let's open it up and see what the tubes look like. Okay, so these are the tubes. So I don't have time this evening to like do everything for this review. Also, I want to paint with these quite a bit and get a good sort of handle on them before I give my final opinions. I don't want to, I've done lots of first impressions before and that's all well and good, but I think especially with like low cost paints, like this set was really inexpensive. I think it's around 34, 35, 36 pounds roughly. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head. The set, other than the yellow palette, but everything else, the paintbrush, the paper, the water well, the paints, very affordable price. I think it would make, like on first impressions, just looking at everything, I'd say this would make a great sort of like gift for like a birthday, Christmas, any sort of gift giving occasion for an artist in your life, especially someone who's like new to the medium or wants to get into watercolors. I'd say this would be a great sort of introductory set, and then you can kind of upgrade different aspects of it. So on the first impressions, you get 12mm tubes, so you get a decent quantity of paint. They're non-toxic, conform to ASTM standards. You have the pigment information, light fastness and transparency information on the tube as well, which is always great to see. I find that a lot of low cost paints, especially like some student grade paints and even lower than student grade, like craft grade paints, don't include any sort of pigment information. So the fact that they give you pigment information is great, and a lot of the pigment info is are pigments that I'm fairly familiar with. There are some in here that are less common in more artist grade watercolors. So one I can see right here, PY1 is not typical in artist grade watercolors. I don't think that's particularly light fast pigment, PY1. PO13, I don't think that's a particularly light fast one. That's not one I see often. And also PR21 is not a pigment. And PR13, those are not pigments I typically see in artist grade watercolors, so that tells me that those probably aren't the most light fast pigments, but I don't know much about them. And then finally we have the watercolor paper. It's 100% cotton. It's a lovely size, 10.2 by 7 inches or 26 by 18 centimeters. I'm really excited to try out this paper because it's also fairly affordable, and because it comes in a block as well, that's also really great. So this first sheet is just a protective layer. So what you do, they have an opening as it says at the top here. It's glued on all 4 sides and it just has a little opening at the top here. So that's what this tool is for. You tuck it into the gap at the top under the first sheet, and then you run it around the edge of the block, and that's how you get the top layer off. In this case it's just a piece of thin paper, but when you're taking off a sheet from the block it'd be the same principle. My plan is I'm going to be doing some painting with these paints whilst I'm at home. So I will test out this palette while I'm home, and I will pour the paints into this palette. I'll test it out, see how they mix, how they dry, how they re-wet, all of that. And you know, I want to have used them for at least a couple of weeks before I give you my thoughts and opinions on them. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So for the rest of this evening, I guess it's nighttime right now, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a bit of paint pouring into this palette, get it all set up, leave it to dry, and then hopefully in a couple of days, once the paints have dried out, I'll come back and we'll do some swatching, some colour mixing, and maybe some paintings. And then once I've done my trip and I come back, I'll show you what I've painted with these paints, and we'll talk a bit more about what I think about them. It's been a couple of weeks now, or more than that, since I did the unboxing and initial sort of palette setup and swatching of this set of this watercolor kit that Meeden sent me, plus this palette. Today's conversation is about the Meeden watercolors and what I think about them. So you can see this palette, the paint has been dried in here for several weeks now. There's not a lot of, I mean, there is some cracking in some of the paints, but there's no crumbling. The paints aren't falling out. They're all in there perfectly fine, and the cracking is nothing to be concerned about. It doesn't really affect the quality or the usability of the paints at all. Yeah, like they are stuck in there. They're not just going to fall out, which is good to know. And also apologies if you can hear a fan in the background. Hopefully it's not too annoying. I have turned it down. It is just boiling hot here, and my office is in the attic of our house, and we're in the middle of a heat wave at the moment, so it's very warm. And yeah, anyway, so back to this. So yeah, that just wanted to show you how the paint's dried down in the palette. And then obviously we've got the tubes here. They're 12mm tubes. There's plenty of paint in them. I think as like a beginner's set, the range of colours isn't bad. It's not perfect, but it's not the worst thing I've seen. So I did the swatching. I'm pretty sure I included the swatching in a video. I hope I did. Some of the pigments are slightly less common pigments that I wouldn't normally find in professional watercolors, which makes me think that this set is, I mean, it's definitely, from having used it, it's definitely more of a student grade quality. That's not to say it's a bad set, it's just not professional grade, and I wouldn't necessarily trust the light fastness ratings on the tubes. I mean, they all, pretty much all of them except one or two, have a 3 out of 3, I assume, light fastness rating. A couple of them have 2-star light fastness, so I'm not entirely sure how much I believe that. I would recommend doing your own light fastness testing to be sure of how light fast they are if you're planning on selling work you make with these paints. The other letdown for this set are the neutrals, the browns. The browns just aren't dark enough or strong enough to make good mixes. I found I ended up using blacks a lot to mix with to get darker colours, because the browns just weren't doing anything. They're very gummy, and they weren't nice to paint with, if that makes sense. Most of the other colours were fine. There's some mild granulation in their ultramarine. And yeah, anyway, so I thought I'd show you some of the paintings and pieces I've done using these paints, including the, and reviewing the paper at the same time. So I've used all the paper in this pad. It is now completely empty, and I really wanted to put it to the test. It claims to be 100% cotton watercolor paper. I would agree with that. It's size 10.2 by 7 inches or 26 by 18 centimeters, 20 pages, 300 GSM, cold press, acid free. And I believe you can purchase this paper individually as well outside of the set. I think you can actually buy all the component parts individually or as part of the set. If you buy it as a set, I believe it's definitely a better value overall price. I'll have links to everything down below on the Meeden website, and there's also a discount code down there in the description box as well. I think there is some kind of referral system in place, so I might get a small commission off any purchases that you make. I can't actually remember. I'll make sure to include all that information in the description box. I always make it very clear if any links I include are affiliate links anyway, but just so you know, an affiliate link is basically, all it means is if you purchase anything after clicking on that link, I get a small percentage of whatever it is you've bought. It doesn't cost you anything extra though. It's just the company, it's like a thank you from the company for like referring you to them. Okay, disclaimer aside, I actually really like the paper. I did find it very similar to like the Bauhong 100% cotton watercolor paper, their Academy range, which is really lovely paper to paint on. I enjoy painting on it, on that paper all the time, so I definitely didn't find this to be any different or worse or better than that. So first up we have some just colour mixing to see how the colours mix together. I did the pale yellow and Prussian blue, got some nice greens. Then I did the sap green with black and got some nice darker greens, and then I think I added some yellow here and got some more olivey tones. Then the scarlet and pale yellow, got some nice oranges. Violet and deep green, got some lovely darks. And then we had the deep green and rose, which again gave some really lovely purples. One of my favourite colour mixes is Viridian or Phthalo green and quinacridone rose, so I wanted to see if this gave a similar sort of colour mix, and it does. Even though the deep green is not pure phthalo green, it's phthalo green with a touch of phthalo blue included. There was a phthalo green in the set, but I prefer the deep green colour. Vermilion and cobalt, I wanted to see if these would neutralise, and they did to a degree. There were definitely some nice darks there, and this was just a bit of wet on wet colour blending to see how the colours blended together. And you can see here that they don't blend particularly like evenly. I mean, the cauliflowering or whatever might just be there was too much water, but you can see there's this sort of texture that's come up, and it's not granulation. And I'm not sure if that's because there are like certain fillers and things included in these paints that I don't know about or what, but yeah, anyway, I wanted to share that. Then I did some paintings. So we have this little floral piece, and actually some of these I repeated similar paintings using my professional grade watercolors, so we could do some little side-by-sides and compare how they turned out comparatively. So there's this one, which I think didn't turn out too badly. The colours are went down well. They the centre, you know, the paper stayed wet long enough to do some wet and wet things if you wanted to, and then the paint's layered up nicely with the added details and things on top. Then I tried a sort of mountainscape, and you can see it's quite I don't know, gritty almost looking. It's not granulation, but it's a bit gritty. I mean, it's not terrible, but you can see here the strokes aren't completely even. It's a little bit streaky in places. For this one, I think I used the cerulean blue, cerulean hue, and the rose colour. So the cerulean blue is a PW6 PB15. I wanted it to be like a cobalt tealy type colour, and then I slowly added in the rose colour to get darker and darker, some more purple tones towards the bottom. And we have this one. It was just a fun little geometric abstract. Again, it was really fun. And we have this one, which is another floral, again sort of playing around with the wet on wet and details on top and with dry paint, etc. And again, didn't turn out too badly. It's just the way some of the paints bleed into the wet areas that's a bit strange. It's not sort of how I normally see it happening in my professional colours, and also in some places where it's dried, like I said, it has that funny, it has a weird texture that doesn't seem very typical from what I've experienced. Again, another little abstract, like trees, rainbow trees. Again, just playing with shapes. And again, you can sort of see, like from afar it doesn't look too bad, but when you look up close you can see how uneven the washes are and how like unevenly the paint goes down. Then I believe this one, yeah, this one, I can't remember now which one's which. Okay, so this one was done using the Meeden paints, and I have the corresponding one that I did in my professional paints. So the one on the right was done using the Meeden paints, and the one on the left was using my professional colours, my professional paints. They look very similar. Ignore the fact that the greens on the right are darker. It's just my colour mixing. I mixed darker greens for the painting on the right, but otherwise they turned out fairly similarly, other than you can see, again, you can see here where the colours have bled and you get that sort of splotchy effect. It's not a nice clean bleed like you get here. It's like a smoother bleed, I guess, and you don't get that weird texture compared to here. I'm not sure how clear that is on camera. It's clearer in person. You can see that the one on the right, it just looks a bit different, if that makes sense. But you know, it's from a distance when you're looking at it, it's not a terrible it's not a terribly huge difference, and I think a lot of that comes down to having good quality paper. Good quality paper can make all the difference with lesser quality paints. Okay, and then this was one I did with my this was with the Meeden as well, I believe. Yeah, this was also with the Meeden paint. So again, you can see the slightly uneven texture, but it was really fun, and this is, you know, I really like this, how this one turned out. Then I did this one using my professional paints. I was using my granulating colours. I wanted to see how the paper showed off granulation, because the colours in the Meeden set don't really granulate, and granulating colours tend to be a little bit more streaky to begin with, but I do really like how this one turned out. It was a really fun little abstract. Oh, and then this one was similar to the first painting I showed you. It's not exactly the same, but similar sort of style. I didn't go back over to added too much line work detail in the paints, but you can sort of see the differences there. And then this one was, I repeated the landscape with my professional colours. And so again, I used cobalt teal, which is a granulating colour, and I added in Quin Rose, I believe it was, or a PV19. And even though this one granulates, and so the textures from the granulation compared to this one, where the texture just seems a bit, it's just different. I don't know how to describe it. Anyway, just wanted to share, and you can see how more evenly the colours, I was able to get a darker tone at the top and gradiate it out a lot more evenly with the professional paints than I was able to with the Meeden paints. So I was able to reserve more of the highlighted parts in between the mountain layers with the professional paints than I was with the Meeden paints. And then these last couple I did with my professional paints as well. This was just having a bit of fun, playing with some pattern ideas. Again, just doing some doodling. I was running out of ideas. I was finishing up the block, and I think this was actually the last page I did. I just wanted to use up the paper at this point. And then this one again, another fun sort of pattern. Oops, upside down, that way. This was I'm really annoyed with myself. I splattered some blue paint on there, but this was inspired by a quilt pattern I saw a picture of online, and I thought it was really fun. So I recreated it as a painting, which I really liked. And that is, like I said again, the paper works beautifully. I really love the paper. I'm just not 100% sold on the paints as such. But having said that, if you are a beginner and you're starting out, and or if you're looking to buy it like a beginner set for a beginner, this isn't a bad set to begin with, because I think having 100% cotton paper to play with at the beginning is really important. And the only additional thing I would say is, if you bought the beginner set, which includes all of this, is you will need to purchase an additional palette to actually have somewhere to decant the paints, whether you want to use them fresh from the tube or dry them down. And this palette I would highly recommend. It is a little bit larger. It's definitely a larger size palette. So if the person you're buying for, or for yourself, if you have the space to have something this big open on your desk, go for it. I think it's great. The larger wells makes it really easy to get sort of any size brush in there without damaging the bristles. And you have nice large mixing areas, which is great for learning colour mixing. However, if this is too big, Meeden also do smaller tins, like this size. This is a Paul Rubens one, but Meeden do the same exact tins in different colours, all sorts. The black ones are the standard, and they hold 24 half pans, or sometimes you can squeeze in 26 half pans. And this is a 24 colour set, so that would also be a perfect alternative as like an addition to the set. And I will link I will link one of those tins in the description box below as well, along with everything else that I've shown here, so you can see that too. But yeah, the brushes, I know I haven't talked about the brushes much. The brushes are pretty good. Like, I had no issues using the brushes. They have nice sharp points. The flats were great. This larger flat was good for covering larger areas. I didn't use the fan brush at all. I don't really have a need for a fan brush, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that one. But in general, everything else I used a lot. I enjoyed them a lot. The only thing I would have maybe changed about the set is it'd be nice to have the sizing on the actual brush, and maybe even the brush shape noted on here, whether it's a round or a flat or whatever, just so that if you are new, because this is a beginner set, that you will be able to learn the names of the brush types. Additionally, I feel like there's a lot of round brushes in very similar sizes included in the set. Let me just move those flats out the way. Like these 6 brushes, so this one is the largest. I feel like they could have had a size, I feel like they could have had a size larger than this large one in the set. That would have been really handy. And these 2 were good sizes, and like I said, there could have been a third large one, but these 4, they're all very similar sized. So these 4 sizes, these 4 brushes are all very similarly sized, other than maybe this one on the furthest on the right is the smallest one. But I don't think you really need 3 brushes so similarly sized, so maybe keep the smallest one, maybe one of these 3, and then the other 2, one could be a larger round brush, and the other one, you know, you could have thrown in a different shape. You've included, there were 3 flat brushes included and a fan. You probably could have included a filbert, or maybe get rid of the fan brush as well and include a filbert and a dagger brush or something like that. Just a couple of different more like fun shapes that could have been included instead. Overall though, I'd say it was a good beginner set. No hairs fell out, the brushes, like I said, all held their point really well, and yeah, overall I enjoyed using them. Didn't have any issues, and they will go into my regular rotation of brushes to be used as and when I need them. And then also the water container. This is probably my favourite part of the whole set. I love this. This has been a permanent fixture on my desk, and I use it pretty much every time I paint at my desk, which is great. And I also love the palette as well, which came obviously separately from the kit. So talking about the kit first, and then this. I'd say from the kit, the paper and the paint well are my favourite things. Then I would say it's the sort of the paint and the brushes almost equally. But yeah, otherwise I think overall as a kit, as a set, it works really well together. I don't think it would be a bad kit for a beginner, but I think you might, as a beginner, you know, after a while you might get a little bit frustrated with the paints, and you may then want to think about upgrading eventually to better quality paints. But otherwise everything else in the kit is great off the bat, and like I said, adding a palette to the kit overall would make it even more usable as well. Alright, so that's it for my thoughts on this kit. Like I said, I'll have links to everything down below. Let me know if you have any questions about any of the materials or anything I shared today. If I forget to include a link to something I said I would, please let me know and I will go ahead and fix that. Otherwise, I will see you all next time. Take care. Bye!